now I'd like to introduce our next speaker here, who probably doesn't need much of an introduction. Ernie Johnson is going to talk a little bit about history, or where he came from, and St. Andrew's congregation, his association with them. So, Ernie, I'm going to turn this over to you, and if we got time afterward, we'll have a few questions, and he might be able to answer them, or he might not.
Can't answer. Well, I'm going to tell you something before I start. I'm not here because I wanted. I was pressured by these young people who are now 60s and 70s. And they said, and you're going to find out this is all about one priest. So, my sons had a deciding war, and you'll find out why. Well, I came here in 1935. At that time, Father Rich was pastor, and he was a nice fellow, but Bruna at that time, we didn't have a furnace that worked, and there was 50, 60 people. Well, I never counted it, but that's what it looked like. And they were all farmers or retired farmers, and no, there wasn't many. So, well, he was then come. I got pretty well acquainted with him pretty quick because his housekeeper was from Plain and my wife was from Plain. So but he wasn't here long, and I can't tell you how long he was. But he wasn't doing what the bishop wanted. He wanted him to get the parish in shape, and he wasn't interested. So then they sent Father Herman out here, and he got things moving. The sad part of it is I was about the only young guy around, and the only guy that either was retired or was working. And he said, "We got to get some money around." I said, "You're asking a guy that bought a dead horse to start with, and it ain't doing much." So, well, I didn't know what to do, but I did have a few customers. Hank Nicholas was one of them, and he belonged to St. Andrews. So now this is going to should get a laugh out of it, if nothing else. He says, "Well, I'll get the Herfels, and you do the rest." And this was Thursday night. Saturday night when I shaved him, he said, "I got $200. We needed 4, and I had a heck of a time getting the other 200. But we got the furnace. Well, then there was no money. So then Father Herman said, "I hear you're handy." Well, in a big hole down in the middle, that's where the furnace was. So I packed it. Those days we didn't, some reason we were locked up on Thursday afternoon. So that's where I went out. I got that closed up before Sunday. And he was working. He got the furnace. They never heated that church, only on Sunday, and that was never heated on Sunday. So he was there, and I think he was here just to get things going. But then we got another wonderful priest, Father Kepler, and he went on for there. And Father Herman and I got to be good friends. So he was down at, I think it was Whitewater. I called him up. I said, "I'd like to come down and visit." And I did. And in comes, I got a little guy, got breakfast. Sometimes I get the one laughing. And he was an assistant down there. And he come in, and I thought, he's the most unpolite person. He took over. I came down to see Father Herman, and he was talking. I went back, and he says, I'm going to be pastor in Verona, and I'm going to build a school. I've got a school all this in there. Well, then, Father Kepler in there, I don't know how many years, and who was the next priest? Father Bragdon. And I thought, little brother. Anyway, I wasn't done. I didn't have any job. Joe Culture was one of the, and things didn't go very good. Well, there was quite a few that wanted the schools, so that got started, but Joe Culture was a wonderful fellow, a smart guy, and then he come to me one day. He said, we got to get you on the council, Gene Drager and Gene Hoffman. I want to, well, you got us on there for, gosh, that's too bad we ever got on. Anyway, then they were getting money. Culture was one of the guys coming around. I'm afraid this is going to drag out too long.
No, don't worry about it.
And I said, I ain't got much money, but I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll have Ronnie and Joe. I taught these guys to lay tile and demo cabinets. They were pretty good. I said, I'm not going to lay any more tile. I've laid all the tile I've blown it, but I'll donate the labor and furnish the tile and the glue. And so, they had sisters coming in. The convent was part of the school, so they had to get that labor. The culture told me that you got to get that. Well, I said, I went up and I'd always lay this stuff out for the young guy. They could have done it, but I never trusted them. So I went up and laid it out, and here comes, and sent them up there. Here comes Ronnie and Joe. Ronnie was crying, and I said, what's the matter? Oh, he said, I'm not going to repeat that sentence. Anyway, I said, go up and pick, how much have you got glued up? We hadn't started. He said he wanted professionals, he didn't want kids. Well, I told Joe Costa when I took it, I wasn't going to lay it. I didn't think he had to have a certain type of a guy lay it. So I said, go up and pick up the stuff and bring it back. Well, then he says, I'm going to hire a professional. Well, you know, he couldn't think past his nose because he was getting, when he got the bids, you know, they don't sell tile wholesale, they don't work for nothing. Well, then he was stuck, and he had to call me back. I made him sweat, because I didn't want all this tile either. But I said, all right, my boys are going to lay it, but this is all duty for you. If I kept you in here, I'll pull them off again. So he did. I don't think he did. Well, then they got it done, and I inspected it first because that's part of your job. You got somebody working for there. So I said, clean it up good, and I said, not tomorrow. Go over there after when the mass is out and take them over and take them through. By that time, the sisters were already moved in, and he was going to go in. Sister Elizabeth, I'm going to tell you something that don't mean nothing, but she was from Plain too. When she would come down the house, she said, "This is terrible to be stuck out here in this little town, no car." Well, I said, I got a car that I never used, only on Sunday. So she got the car. Father said, I got to inspect. You don't have to inspect. She said, we inspect. So, well, I washed my hands out of everything. But then Joe got us on the council, and school got finished. And then he was out buying houses on Main Street. And he was going to see this church owned all that whole property on Franklin. Who comes in Monday morning? The loader. He was building that 8 unit that's on the end over there. And he said, I said, I looked at your unit. I said, that's going to be one of the nicest apartments in town. Yeah. He said, but I'm going to have to file bankruptcy. I can't borrow any money, you know. They won't give me anything. I said, if you got 8 or, I can't, I'm not sure of this now. I think it was 8 or 9 lots we had on Franklin Church. So I said, well, would 8 or 9 lots get you out of it? Where are you going to get them? I said, church owns them, and I can arrange it that you can get it. Well, George Funeral Home wanted to buy it 2 lots, but see, Father wouldn't sell it to him because he was going to buy houses. So we didn't. I asked Culture, a lot of the stuff I'm saying today is not my thoughts. It was Joe Culture. And he says, well, we're going to have a meeting, but we're not having him here. We're going to meet on the side because he'll throw a wrench in the sure thing. So I told Loader, and these 3 of these guys were farmers, and I can't think of the other one. He mustn't have said much. Anyway, we got meeting set up, and we had it at sisters were on my side, so I was in good shape. So we had sisters meeting at the school. And we come to an agreement that, now, I don't remember what it was. He got the lots and everything but the church and the parsonage. And we got all that land. Well, you could know where it is, north of the church.
Up to the cemetery.
So,
up to the cemetery.
Yeah. So I said to Joe, how are you going to work this? We're going to have a meeting tonight. And we're going to have it at the parsonage, so he's going to be there. Well, there wasn't much you could do. You had to agree with it. Yeah, but that wasn't the end of it. Let's see, how did that go now? Give me a second. Oh yeah, then it started on the church, and so I said, well, we got. Coucher had some architect that built churches, and we went there. We liked it. He didn't go along. I said, hey, aren't you going along? No, he said, I'm busy. Well, we went down, and I really liked it. This was really a nice story. It would have held about 100 more people than one we got. But he designed churches with a panel on each side that you could, if you ever have to build on, you could finish the outside. I don't understand that. Well, so then we set up a meeting with we went to go to the meeting. He said, what are you guys doing here? You are not my council anymore. I got a new council.
So you were off the council?
We were up. We had plans. But we had to be stupid too, or we wouldn't. Well, then there was a new regulation by the diocese. I knew the Bishop O'Connell because he and my wife always went to the doctor at the same time, so I got related with him. And the priest that came after Bishop, well, they were having problems. These guys were dropping out of the priest. Anyway, there was new regulations, and he wasn't going to. He had a guy up in front. We were going to shove this through, and I made up my mind. I don't bet you. Then I had a good help for some woman from Peel, I can't remember her name. Boy, I tell you.
There's a bunch of them there.
So, then he got moved. They moved him to Evansville.
Now, which
And I'm
priest,
gonna finish his part of it now.
which
because-
priest was that?
Huh?
Which priest was that?
Which guy moved to Evansville? What was his name?
Brecht.
Brechtel? Okay.
Yeah, he was over there. He wasn't over there long, and the bishop retired him. He was a young man yet. I felt sorry for the guy. God, here he was, retired, and all these guys that got me in trouble, but the other poor guy. God, he lived, in fact, he lived at their door. He'd come with his little dog at dinner time. But, yeah, well, then we had Father Massian was next. Well, he was one of these priests that dropped out. Well, he said Mass, but he wasn't here long. And then Father Baus come on. Father Baus was a nice guy, but he talked forever. I remember him at 6 o'clock and the whistle went. And I used to take communion over to the nursing home, and I'd have to wake these old people up. Well, then anybody who was broke, he'd give them money. Well, Mickey was on the count. So.
Your son Mickey?
Yeah, well, he's the reason I'm here too. He says they're not gonna bury this with you. People should know. Well, you're fine now. Well, anyway, he gave it. So then the guy that was, I'm not gonna mention names, was president. Mickey was vice president. So they took the checkbook away from him, that he couldn't write checks unless they, but they were in the hole so bad, they moved. Check. They didn't pay the water bill or the light bill, the old stores. Well, then Bishop O'Connell, I think he was still in there, he had to find a priest. Nobody, who would want to come in a mess like that? So, Father Schmelzer, I'll take it if you let me stay there till I retire. He must have been thinking when he did that. But he come in, and I'll never forget his first mass. I take communion, I look at my watch, 5 minutes to 6. And you could set your watch on when he was done. If there's a long gospel, he talked a little about it, but he cut something else short. He started Johnny on the spot at 8 o'clock. It was great. We didn't know how lucky we were. He was here, it must have been 20 years. We paid all these debts. We had a leaky parish center, put a roof on that, and then finished the church. That was a mess. And he never talked money once in the 20 years. And he paid for all. But people paid because they were doing what they wanted. He did wonders. He finished the church. And then he left his parish with $1 million in the bank. I don't think anybody would top it. That's as far as I'm going, because he knows I don't amount to nothing. I haven't been active for years. I really wasn't active much during Spelzer's, but I paid my bills. That's all I'm going to say.
I think the other day we were talking, Ernie, and I thought it was pretty interesting how you became a Catholic. There was a little story there.
Well, my folks were Lutheran. I went to parochial school for a month every Sunday. See, things were, well, let's face it, people were clannish, Norwegians, Swiss, you know, nobody's good as me. But this was all Norwegian, so we used to public school, parochial school, and I was raised, I might as well tell you that, in kind of a weird family. My father's first wife died when she was 30. And he had 5 kids. And my mother married him with 5 kids, and I was the oldest kid. So. And my half-brother was 7 years older than I was. If anybody needed a babysitter, so I hardly got to know my dad until I came to Verona, because I was never home. We walked 2 miles to school, we had chores to do and go to school, and then chores at night, we'd have about an hour, and then at 8 o'clock we went to bed, because we had to get up. But when I got, God, this is going to be long, you know that? Well, you're old. Well, I was raised on the farm, and I liked farming, and I went farming, and then I went farming for my brother-in-law, and his farm was in terrible shape. He worked my tail off the whole year for nothing. 2 days before Christmas, he said, Ernie, you'll have to get a job 1st of March, I'm going to run the farm. I said, you just started running the farm, I'm leaving. I didn't even stay for supper. And I went to barber school, I went to Milwaukee. And Roosevelt, I had a great time for 3 months. Danced the Beguile Barter, all those big orchestras, you can do it for a quarter. And had big time. But then I got a job on Center Street. 15 cents for a haircut, 15 cents for a shave, 65. Worked for the most miserable guy that was ever born. And then Roosevelt closed banks. My dad sold a cow, and he got $25, and that was one. I hadn't ate for 3 days, and I was down in the barber school, and here was this guy from Plain. He wanted a barber. And nobody wanted the job. I said to Fake, how come nobody wants that job? I thought I heard room, board, and washing. Yeah, but it's only $3 a week. Yeah, but I said, she got to be a terrible cook. I'd had bread crust for breakfast for 3 days and peanuts for the rest of the night. And I was hungry. So he wanted a shaving, a haircut, shampoo, and a massage. I didn't have any tools. But Easter Sunday, this Polish kid and I got Jim Delikowski, ain't it funny? I remember that. He took me out to this, and he says, "What church do you go to?" I was a Lutheran. There's a Lutheran church right across from our church. See? You go to church. But get in this house, they had 2 kids besides him. And God, you know, he had enough to feed them without feeding me. I had 2 good meals out there. And I didn't have tools, so you know who popped up. Julius said, have my tools, use my chair, and the bank sharpened my razor, so it's sharp. So and when he got done, he took a look at his haircut. He said, I'd like to hire you. When can you start? I said, you don't happen to have room I could ride along with. I couldn't get out of Milwaukee. So that's how I got to Plain. And I got to Plain, and that's when my dad took over. Him and Margaret handled me from then on until we got a house. We lived in the worst flat you ever saw. All we had was running water. I had to get up. I'd go to 36 with a cold wind. I'd get up, go to bed at 10, get up at 2 and 6 to keep the water pipe. We did have a decent stove in it. Yeah, I'll never forget one night, I was down there at 2 o'clock in the morning. Somebody pounding on the door. Hank Pierce Dawson, a lot of you knew him. He had a cat, and they started at Tacoma Road at 6 o'clock. and they got to Verona at 2. Can you imagine that? Without a cab? I don't know. The guy's froze. And he says, can we get in the walk? Where did you come from? Well, what did you eat last 6 o'clock? Gosh, you better fire the stove. And we'd had roast pork for supper. Margaret, I went up and made coffee and made 2 sandwiches. And I don't know when they got to Mountain Grove. You know, that was terrible. 51, she got a card from Florida. Who do you suppose it was from? Those guys with a $20 bill. He said, I see it was 51 below in Lone Rock. I think it was 51 below when you made sandwiches. Good stuff. This was 51, 36, and he never forgot. Wow. Well, I'm going to quit before I get told out. Okay.
But we didn't quite touch on how you ended up being a Catholic.
What?
How did you end up being a Catholic while playing?
Oh, that's when we started out. My dad came up. My dad was, he was out of this war. I come up and he says, where's the Lutheran church? I said, there ain't any. I said, ain't any Lutheran church. There were 3 people in town that weren't Catholic. That was the doctor and I don't know what he did, but they were all German, except there was a few Irish. Not many. I think one, I think, wasn't it? Matthew or one. And one Norwegian. Well, he says, well, then you go to Catholic church. So I went to Mass every Sunday. And then my dad was a century ahead. He was in the insurance business. He's town chairman. He worked with Irish, Swiss. He wasn't like the rest of them. And God, you know, my first date with my wife was Ringling Brothers. That was in the spring. I got married in October. It must have. So, well, then I went home and he said, what are you going to do about religion? I said, oh, I will. She never asked me, and I didn't say it. He says, you better join the Catholic Church. She ain't going to change, or you're going to raise a bunch of heathens. He said, so, then you see, priests weren't much better than the rest of them. We had a priest there, he was anti-Protestant, he was anti-anything but German. Then I had to go alone, you know. I cut his hair quite a few times. He never talked to me very much. Well, he said, Father, Nick will take care of it. So I went in and see Nick. And because I knew all prayers are simple or practically simple. He says, see the sin for you? I'll give you the Hail Mary. You learn that, you're okay.
I thought that was kind of cute. We were talking over the phone, and I thought that was something you shouldn't share. So, well, yeah. Well, Ernie, this has really been good. I think you did a great job.
That's the only thing I'm really good at is Morse talking.
Oh, Ken.
I have a couple questions.
You got it all talk loud, Ken.
When you came to town, was the Red Church there already?
What is that? You gotta get over here, Ken. I can't get up.
When you came to town, was the church on Main Verona Avenue, was that there already?
Oh, that church was there.
It was there. 'Cause
The old church.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. 'Cause
That's what we had to fix up.
Willie Huffman used to tell me about that he and his family, they dug the basement by hand and There weren't that many people. Weren't
I
that
tell
many-
you, I don't think Louis Hoffman built it by hand.
No, they dug the basement.
Because
They dug the basement.
He dug the basement. He dug the basement, he said.
Oh, for the church?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't, Louis might have did that. And I dug the basement for the barber shop.
You did it by hand?
Oh, horses and Willie.
Oh, no kidding.
One of them drunks will get a lot of. Yeah. My dad says, see, I would have never had that house. It wouldn't have been my dad. If I could only borrow 3,500, it was gonna cost 5,000. And that Schutz sisters had those lots for sale. So Huff and I bought that lot, and I took one, he took the other. And, my dad and my wife, well, this is August. You don't work, we had to work nights because everybody worked all the time. See, we worked Monday, Wednesday, Friday and Saturday. You don't work Monday and Tuesday, you got plenty of time to dig that basement. Well, and the funny part of that was, in the spring when the car, he said, I have built a lot of houses, but I have never saw a basement as neat and exact as it. You are pretty good. I said, Willie was pretty good.
Was Willie the drunk?
Huh?
Was Willie the drunk? Was Willie the man that drank too much?
Yeah, well, we had a lot of them in Morgan. That's the thing. There was about a half a dozen guys that work all week to get drunk on the weekend. And one of them was on cross. And I got down about that. Even I had red clay. Did you ever shovel that? I couldn't get shoveled in it. And this cross. One of these farmers, you know, the retired farmers, they were always giving me, and this old farmer said, what are you doing down there? That was about 6:30 in the morning. I said, I'm trying to dig this basement. I said, I can't do it. It's check. Well, I said, why don't you get out of course? He did that in a little while. So I went and got out of course. He had a hair lip. Yeah, he talked about, oh, no, he said he couldn't tell what. He had that dug in 2 hours. And I said, how much? Well, I'm going 50 cents. Well, I said, I'm going to give you $1. Those guys work for $1.
Don has some.
I was going to say, when Ernie came to town, the Catholic Church was there. And that was the north edge of Verona, and the Catholic cemetery was there then.
What did you say?
He said when you came, the Catholic Church was there and the Catholic cemetery.
Yeah, the cemetery was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, none of them guys moved either.
One thing I never could understand.
This is a church.
1 second here. Go ahead.
One thing I never could understand, they had the regular cemetery and they had the Catholic cemetery. For years, the Catholic cemetery never grew. Apparently, the Catholics never died.
I think they died. They're waiting for me. But it was a woman. Oh God, you know them women come with them hats and Bessie Nicholas, about one of the sharpest old women in town. She went, I got off the step and she got down the bottom and her hat come flying and the guy was going to catch it and it went through. She said, you can keep it.
Oh, yeah.
Was she Father Nicholas's mother?
That's right. Yeah, she was a nice girl. Yeah, she, I got drunk once. Milton David wine. I had a pretty good, I bought a hair dryer for women, you know, for $25. He said, some woman, lady lost. He said, why'd you buy that? You can wash it. See, a lot of these houses didn't have hot water, and so I wouldn't wash hair after 4 o'clock, but and Bessie was one of them. And, well, Margaret's mother had a heart attack, she was going in. I pulled with a bunch of drunks, and that's my, and I never could drink beer, so I'd always have one wine. Well, you don't have, your wife ain't moved tonight. I drank too much, motor drink, and I got sick. I was sick. This was Tuesday night, I was sick Wednesday, and I had to work. Everybody in town knew I was been drunk. Guys got shaved that didn't have whiskers. Bessie Nicholas come in, and she always got her head was at 1 o'clock. I'm gonna wash my hair, you got a hangover. I said, well, you know, then you might as well go home. No, I'm not going home. I'm going to sober you up. She called Claire Scher. You know, if you ever have that problem, homemade tomato soup sober me right up. And I made a vow that I'd never take a second drink. I'd have a couple of Margaret come home then, her mother got better. She said, I was going, you were sick. I feel sorry for you. And I got drunk. Never.
That was the big news in town.
Okay, I think, sure, we can do that.
Who is?
Oh, okay.
So after Father Smelser, Monsignor Smelser, there was Father Stillmank, and then Father Dave Timmerman, and then myself, and we were all blessed to get to know Ernie too in our times. You know, Father Monsignor Smelser, a good friend of Ernie's and his family, and then there was Father Stillmank and Father Timmerman, and then myself. And I was blessed to be here just a couple of years now, a few years, but during Ernie's 100th birthday. And I don't know if you all know this, but Ernie turns 103 on Sunday. And he doesn't probably want me to say all this, but I'm going to say it. It's all right. It's okay. And he'll be at the Capitol Bank on Monday. There'll be a party there on Monday from 9 a.m. to 1. They'll have cake and all that. And we actually sang happy birthday to him this morning at our parish birthday breakfast. We have on once a month. We have that on a Wednesday. So I thought if it's all right, we can sing happy birthday to Ernie. And we started the celebration this morning. So is that okay? It'll be 103 on Sunday. So okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ernie. Happy birthday to you.